Good evening. It's time for Necromaniacs. I hope everyone's doing well. And how are you doing, Jeff? Everything going well on your side of the table there?
It's going all right. I'm kind of exhausted today, but other than that, things are going pretty good. I've been making furniture all day,
That
and
sounds like
which
fucking horrible, man.
yeah, I'm sure this is something everyone can relate to. You go to IKEA, you buy a bunch of stuff, and the instructions are all pictures, which seems simple enough, but I'm a fucking moron. So at first it was kind of like seemed overwhelming, but like after like my fourth thing or whatever, I kind of got the hang of it, and it's more time consuming and tiring than I really expected. And I'm kind of sleepwalking right now, but I'm gonna fucking rally and do this.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And
Of course.
yeah, I always have problems with putting together the IKEA stuff too, man. Honestly, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, I felt like if I just kicked this thing, the whole thing would just fall apart. Like, not even kick it that hard. Like, it's pretty cheap stuff, even though, I mean, it's inexpensive compared to, actual real furniture. But, you drop some money on it. But I feel like the stuff it's constructed out of is just kind of cheap.
It's definitely cheap. I gotta say, I'm gonna go on record saying that the only worthwhile stuff at IKEA is their like towels and like some of their kitchenware. Like if you want to buy like knives and forks and glasses and bowls and stuff like that.
Yeah, or like a lamp or something like that,
Yeah.
But this is something I need. Like we've been basically looking like we're squatting in this house. Our stuff is still not here. Hopefully, by the time this episode airs, it will be here. But I'm sleeping on an air mattress and just surrounded by shit everywhere. And I was like, maybe if I just have some furniture in here, like someplace to put my clothes instead of like still in the suitcase, I'll feel, make it feel a little bit better. So that was my thought process there. So I was like, I just need something. And my old dresser that's coming here is just kind of old and shitty. And like, it's probably going to go in the guest bedroom or whatever. So yeah, that was my day. Like just fucking making shitty IKEA furniture, sweating, sitting on the floor.
So when I come down there, that's where I'm going to be staying, is in the guest bedroom.
I think so. Yeah, we don't have we have a mattress in there, but we don't have a frame for it. So I hope you like sleeping 3 inches off the ground.
That's fine. I spent most of my life sleeping on the floor anyway, so.
Yeah, kind of like it's kind of weird. Sometimes I think the floor might be more comfortable than this fucking air mattress. It's like when you wake up, it's like you're on a water bed. Like some of the air's gone out. I got cats, so they probably poked a hole in it somewhere, so the air kind of slowly seeps out. And by the time you wake up, you try to sit up and you're like sloshing around like a fucking asshole.
Not for nothing. I actually have, I would say 80% of my furnishings in this place are all IKEA stuff, even though I just said that it's all cheap for the most part, but I'm not any better than that. I have like everything, all my furniture except for the couches and the rocking chair, the recliner are all IKEA. Even my desk, IKEA.
Yeah, and that's, you definitely don't want a bed from IKEA or a couch or anything like that. I mean, this shit is so uncomfortable. I remember I had a friend that had an IKEA couch and it just like comes up to like the middle of your spine and you just know where to put your head. Like, it was the most uncomfortable couch I've ever been on. And like, it was just like stiff and fuck that, man. But, I don't start work till Sunday, so I've had plenty of time to watch stuff. This is how we like to start off the show. And I watched an old one I know you really like a lot. I watched Lost Highway.
Oh, yeah, man. It's great. Love it.
Yeah. Love that movie. And it's been a really, really long time since I've seen it. And it was kind of good to see it with sort of fresh eyes. I'd say it's been probably about 10 years since I watched it last. And it still holds up, man. And it's also weird to think, like I saw that in the theater. And, like, now it looks like, 90s movies have a certain look to them. You know what I mean? Like every decade, the movies have a certain look, and it definitely has that 90s sort of like sheen to it. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's a videotape that we had at the 38 Calumet apartment. That was like, we had 2 videos that someone rented and never returned. And
Yeah.
that was one of them, and Event Horizon was the other.
Oh man, doesn't get more 90s than that.
Yeah, so we had those two video cassettes like that just were there. I don't even know who rented them, but they're probably still there. You know, who knows?
We had a similar thing at the 91 Hillside, the Hydra Head House. We had a copy of Train Spotting, like in the Blockbuster video case that was just there, and like just one of those movies. I've seen Train Spotting at least 100 times. Someone would come over, oh, you rented Train Spotting? Well, no, it's actually been here for like 5 months. So yeah, that was that was our movie that was forever being played at that house. But Lost Highway, yeah, one of Lynch's best, and I believe it's the first movie I saw in the theater when I moved to Boston. I
Really?
went with I went with Aaron Turner and Chris Marshak, the original keyboardist or whatever you want to call him for ISIS. We were all, this is a year prior to the band starting, but we were all kind of knew each other, and we were all really big David Lynch fans. And we saw it at a screening with like a bunch of obnoxious film students because I think it was opening night. And like I remember someone like in like the first 10 minutes, someone saying quite audibly, "Oh, David Lynch loves those red curtains." Like, yeah, oh, thank you. I got eyes. You can see that. And then at the very end of the movie, this guy stood up and turned around to address the audience and be like, "Okay, Emerson students, what did we think of that?"
Emerson.
I was like, yeah, I was like, is this how it's going to be in Boston? Is this what it's going to be like?
Isn't Emerson like one of those schools where they just let anyone in? Like you basically just sign up and they admit you. Like you don't even really apply to that school.
Yeah, I had like 4 roommates that went to Emerson, and I'm like, half of them, I'm like, how the hell are you in college? You're literally one of the dumbest people I've ever met.
I feel like everyone I knew, like almost 70% of the people I knew in Boston went to Emerson when I lived up there.
Yeah, I either went to Emerson, Mass Art, or like Turner went to the museum school.
Yeah,
he has actual talent.
Yeah.
Oh, I take that back. There's plenty of good artists that came out of the other schools. Dennis Leary went to Emerson, and I believe Jay Leno, maybe a bunch of people of note went to that school. And I remember I was going on one of my walks, and I remember seeing Bryan Singer coming out of Emerson, and this would be around the time. This would be around the time he was doing X-Men, or X-Men had come out. Maybe it was X-Men 2. I don't know. It was definitely before it turned out like everyone found out he was a fucking child predator. So. But so I think maybe he went there. I don't know. So some people have gone on to do good things. Funny enough, when I moved to LA, my apartment in Hollywood, like after about a year of living there, they built a giant Emerson on our street, blocking the view of the Hollywood sign. I fucking can't escape this place. But yeah, it was good to go back and see Lost Highway. Another movie I wanted to bring up with you, because I know this is a subject near and dear to your heart, werewolves.
Yeah.
And I watched the new Sean Ellis film, The Cursed. I'm wondering if you've seen that yet.
Yes, I want to see that, man. I'm going to watch it this weekend for sure.
Curious what you think. I didn't like it.
Okay. I mean, I'm still going to watch it, and I'll let you know what I think of it.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Maybe I watched it too early in the morning, been having some trouble sleeping. As I mentioned, I'm sleeping on an air mattress, so you tend to wake up like 4 or 5 times a night. So I just got up at like 5 in the morning, and just started watching it. Yeah, Sean Ellis, interesting filmmaker. Like, usually find something of note to like about almost everything he's done, but this one just didn't do it for me. It wasn't a bad movie. I just didn't really do much for me. I think he made a much better horror movie about 10, 13 years ago, something called Broken, which was kind of a stylish, moody piece. Not great, but pretty good. You can probably find it on DVD for like $4. It's or you can probably rent it on Amazon, probably for about the same price.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one.
It's good. I like it. It was one of those like after dark horror fest movies.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those things like in the early aughts where like there'd be like 8 movies to scream at night, and like totally. One of them would be really good and the rest would just be complete shit. Like Mungo was one of those movies.
Yeah, I remember that series definitely.
Yeah,
yeah, some of them were great, some of them were like not so great. That's what I remember
yeah,
about it.
yeah. The Broken was one of the good ones, and I don't know, maybe a second viewing of The Curse would help, but just didn't really do it for me, man. And finally, last thing I want to mention is a movie I didn't mention last week. I forgot, but I watched it in Boise. Like the movie we're about to talk about, I watched a movie called The Shed. And I know you watched that as
Yeah,
well at some point. Yeah, not good.
yeah, I didn't like that at all. Actually, I remember it was just one of the I saw it quite a while ago actually, and it was just one of those nights where I'm like, man, I was just kind of listlessly scrolling through whatever was out there, and it sounded interesting, and I put it on, and I'm like, I was really disappointed by it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of well-worn territory, like the kid who finds a monster and finds a nefarious purpose for. But it's a premise that can be well done, and there's a difference between low budget and amateurish, and this movie felt very amateurish. And I was just kind of confused as I remember. I was like, oh, I remember this movie. It had a cool one sheet, and like I remember the reviews were pretty good. And when it was all said and done, it was like really like I don't know how anyone could think this is a good movie.
Yeah, it's
But
crazy how you can read these reviews sometimes, and then you watch the movie, and you believe that somebody gave someone like an envelope filled with money to write a good review about it.
exactly, like there's so many like weird like lighting not matching up or like weird continuity, like someone's hair would be parted differently within the same scene, like things about the plot of the story that like made no sense. For the movie, this movie it was like an hour and a half long. It could have been 20 minutes shorter. Like it was really just like, yeah, it was bad. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I've been catching up on Better Call Saul because I know the last season's playing right now, so I've been catching up on that. I'm not really a big prequel guy, but this show really does have a life of its own. It's not completely just like, hey, remember this one, Breaking Bad? Isn't that cool? It's really kind of took on a life of its own. I don't know if you're familiar with either of those shows.
Well, yeah, I thought Breaking Bad was awesome, and I only saw the first season of Better Call Saul, and I don't know why I fell off of it because I really liked it, but I'm gonna have to watch the whole thing again, I think.
It's definitely worth going. The first season compared to like the last season I saw, which was 5, 6 is on right now, it gets progressively darker and more in depth. Like it gets more into like the cartel stuff, whereas the first season is more sort of like a family drama and a little bit funnier in tone than what it becomes. It gets dark.
Yeah, I mean, I really I still enjoyed the first season, so I for whatever reason I just fell off of the show. I don't know why, but I did.
That happens
Yeah.
all the time. Like I feel like I've watched one season of a lot of things and thought, oh, that was good, only to like never return to it.
Yeah.
Like I was enjoying Castle Rock and I didn't even finish the first season. Like I just completely forgot about it.
Yeah. Actually, the same thing happened to me too. I still have like 2 episodes left in the first season.
Yeah, and like my girlfriend Taryn was, I think I would caught like a few minutes here and there in the second season because she continued to watch it. But I don't know, maybe one day I'll go back. Like I'm a Stephen King fan, so yeah, I'm sure at one point I'll go back and watch that. But I just wasn't. It was cool, but like I was like, yeah, no, completely forgot about it. To lead into what you've been checking out, Mike, you posted something on Instagram today. You've been reading The Nightmare Factory, the comic book based on Ligatti's writings, haven't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had that for a while, but like, yeah, I was like thumbing through it. Yeah, I was like talking to a friend, and we were talking about Thomas Ligatti, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And
Yeah.
she's also a really big fan of theirs too. So,
Do you have both volumes?
no, just that one.
The second one is not as good as the first, but it has 2 really good stories. They do The Sect of the Idiot and Gas Station Carnivals, which are 2 of Ligatti's stronger stories.
Yeah, that's from Teatro Grotesco.
Yeah, I believe they're both in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Like, and I don't think it butchers Ligatti's style. I mean, it definitely condenses. It's like comic book. It's got to be like 20 pages, a story or so, and you condensing like a 50-page story into 20. You're gonna lose some things, but you still get that Ligotti feel, like the flow of his writing, I don't think you lose too much in the transition from story to comic.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a big tear with Thomas Ligotti up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I started rereading Dracula. I have
That's
this
right, yeah.
really cool like Penguin Classics hardcover with like a very bright cover. Like a lot of colors, like
Yeah.
red and yellow, particularly, which I don't normally go for a lot of color, but this was very striking, so I had to buy it, and it prompted me to start rereading it again. And it's just such a great novel, by the way, just awesome.
Yeah, I remember you showing me a photo of the cover, and it looked like a Sex Pistols album cover.
Yeah, it's really very striking artwork, and I mean it's just a classic piece of literature, man. Honestly, aside from being a great horror story.
Yeah, I've never read Dracula.
Oh man,
I think we mentioned that last
highly
podcast.
recommend it, man. Highly recommend it. I actually highly recommend reading Frankenstein too.
They made a book out of that one too, huh?
Yeah, they're both great, man. I mean, they're just pieces of like their actual literature in my mind. I recommend both of them.
Yeah, they're classics.
Yeah.
Penguin also is like the Criterion collection of the publishing world. It seems like
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a really nice edition they did of the Tenant, the novel or the story that Roman Polanski based his film on, and there is an introduction to that story by Thomas Ligotti.
Oh wow, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, it's really slick. It looks good. Like I said, they're like the Criterion or like the Hydra head of like publishing. Everything looks nice. There's a lot of attention to detail, putting out something that is aesthetically pleasing. Cool company.
Yeah, I backed them 100%, man. I have like tons of their stuff. Like I have like one of the several like volumes of Lovecraftian stuff I have. Lovecraft's work is a Penguin edition of the Cthulhu mythos. And,
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, well, last night actually I saw The Northman by Robert Eggers.
Oh, cool. All right. So, what did you think? I said, yeah, been a little busy. I haven't been able to get out to see it.
It was fucking epic, man. It was great. I bought tickets, online because I have like the AMC movie app, where you can buy tickets online. And
okay.
yeah, so you buy it through the app, and that's how I do it now all the time. I pick my seat. First, I check to see how many people are going that night, and if there's too many people, then I'll go another time. So
yeah,
yeah.
Totally.
So like I scoped it, and I was like, all right, the 8:45 session was the last showing of the film. This is a Wednesday we're recording this, so it was on a Tuesday night, and so I got tickets. I went to train for 2 hours. I drove directly to the mall where the Menlo Park AMC Cinema is, dine-in cinema.
Ooh, fancy for AMC.
Seated myself, sat through, I don't know, about 4 or 5 hours of trailers, and then I got myself a cup of coffee, and I just enjoyed the shit out of the movie, man. It was great. It was just incredible visually. The score was awesome. It just really was epic, man. And Alexander Skarsgård was great. Willem Dafoe's in it. Ethan Hawke is great. Everyone. That white girl, what's her name? Enya, whatever. The
right. Enya
Really?
the musician?
No. You know what I'm talking about? She was in The Witch. That super white chick.
Wait, are you talking about the star of The Witch, the one who's in Last Night in Soho and,
Is
and
that
all
her?
that?
Yeah, her.
I think her name is like Taylor Joy or something like that.
I think it's Enya Taylor-Joy. Isn't that her name?
Yeah, she seems. Yeah, like he seems to really like collaborating with her, the director.
Robert Eggers.
Eggers.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
She was great. Also, that other white lady that was from Eyes Wide Shut is in it.
Oh yeah, and this is Tom Cruise there, Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. She was great. Everything was great. The movie was awesome. It was interesting, violent, no agenda, which I like. It was like a study of just fucking maleness, really. It's just like violence, revenge, like all the things that make life great, was in this movie.
Violence and revenge. I mean, that's really all you need in life. Yeah. I was reading that this is like, I try not to read too many reviews or things like that, but I've been kind of just seeing headlines like that it's his most mainstream movie to date. Like, The Witch and The Lighthouse are sort of these arty, heady, thoughtful kind of like horror flicks, and then like this is just a little bit more like a kind of for everybody, like something that anyone can watch.
I don't agree with that. I mean, maybe
well, that's good to hear. It's actually good to hear.
Maybe if you went to Emerson, and you have your head up your ass, and you're a fucking art student, and you think that like David Lynch is a mainstream filmmaker, then yeah, sure, that's accurate. But it's not like he made like the Hulk or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not like he made like the Robert Eggers, Fast and Furious. It was not. So that's what I consider for everybody. Like this movie was like deep Norse mythology, like well researched. It was based on an Icelandic legend. I mean, I don't really consider that to be that mainstream, really.
I feel like that like it sounds like the same concept as like a Neurosis album.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting like these feelings of that same level of just intensity and grandeur, man. And also, I'm going to say this too. I want Robert Eggers to make a Conan movie.
Oh, that would be interesting.
After seeing this, I was like, this is like, perfect. He would be the perfect filmmaker to realize Robert E. Howard's vision with Conan.
Interesting. I know he's been trying to get a Nosferatu remake off the ground. But
I back that as well, man. I think that I really, really. I mean, I like his other films too. I like The Witch. I like The Lighthouse. I thought they were brilliant.
Love them both.
And that's the thing, man. Like I appreciate like both aspects, both spectrums, where it's like very heady and artsy, but I also appreciate a movie that's just got cool sword fights and awesome visuals and stuff in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this
the big question I have.
What was that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, I mean, this also had that too. I mean, sure, if you're just like maybe on your phone and texting and half paying attention in the film, like you might say, oh yeah, this is just like a movie about barbarians, but it's not. There's like a lot of like topics that are like the kind of how far is too far with revenge and like obsession and like unhealthy fixations on certain things. Like there's all sorts of things that the movie really gets into.
Yeah, like I can't see Robert Eggers making like a straightforward film, just like a popcorn flick. It just doesn't seem like his style.
And I'm going to make one more statement about it too, is like how men and women really need to coexist in the world. Because like, yeah, man, there's moments in the movie where it's like unbridled male rage just brings about complete destruction, and like maybe if there's like the feminine that tempers that rage and that obsessive, that obsessiveness, that you would probably have a better existence. So there's a lot of things like that in the film too.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
The question I had for you, does it dethrone Valhalla Rising as the best Viking movie ever made?
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
okay,
dude.
wow.
It's one of my this is going to be one of my favorite, maybe my favorite movie of the year actually so far.
I think the year Valhalla Rising came out, that was my favorite movie. It's like if he went into that Nicholas Winding Refn, like, I want to make 2001 but about Vikings. Like I really feel like it's that strange and heady of a movie. Like at that point I'd never really seen anything quite like it. It's a Viking movie. There's barely any dialogue. It's super violent. It's super psychedelic. I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just think I like this one more though, but
all right, strong recommendation. I really
totally
really got to see that.
And then I watched the first 2 episodes of Outer Range. Josh Brolin and Imogen Poots is also in that from Green Room.
Sure.
Great. So far I really dig it. It's it has the feelings of a Weird Tale, actually.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that earlier when we were talking about it.
Yeah, there's something about it that reminds me a little bit of Shadow at the Bottom of the World, or that Legati story,
Hmm.
where it's like this. In that story, there's like this weird scarecrow, right?
Yeah.
In this show, there's a weird black hole in the ground, and it's like
Uh,
that's what I mean. It has like that weird tale vibe to it. There's a black hole. Where does this go? Where does it come from? What happens if you jump into this hole? Like it just out of nowhere. There's this fucking weird black hole, which is a portal to somewhere else. It's like that's a weird tale, if you ask me.
I love it when westerns like kind of cross with like genre movies,
Yep.
like a western horror, western sci-fi. I'm such a sucker for that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a real lack of good movies like that. I think when I grew up as a kid, being growing up in the '80s and going to video stores, there's a movie called Grim Prairie Tales. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No, that sounds cool though.
It sounds cool, and it was good when I was a kid. Watching it as an adult, I'm like, this kind of sucks.
Oh.
But it was like a Western anthology horror movie. And as a kid, I loved it. But as an adult, I was like, man, I wish there was a good version of this floating, like somewhere, like a good horror story that's also a Western. But so this sounds like it might scratch that itch a little bit for me.
Yeah, I have to get into it more. Like I said, I only saw the first two episodes, and so far I like it. Yeah, it's like that, Western weird tale horror. Adam Neville wrote a short story that was like a vampire Western, and it's in I can't remember the title of the short story, but it's in one of his short story collections. That if you go on Amazon, they're black covers, and it's like none shall sleep tonight or something like that. Anyway, it's great, and I like, similar to what you said. I love when weird tales and westerns collide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a genre crossing I love. Sort of like a detective story that involves like the supernatural. Something like
Like that.
Polanski's The Ninth Gate or something like
Yep.
that. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah, or that
combining
Clive
two
Barker.
things I love.
That Clive Barker.
Lord of Illusions.
Yep, there you go.
Yep, saw that in the theater.
One last thing is I finally saw Possession, the
Okay,
the
all
Andrei
right, yeah.
Zulawski film with Sam Neill.
A
And,
young Sam Neill, yes.
a young Sam Neill, like a kid. Like
Probably
he was like 22
20s
or
or
something.
something.
And what an incredible movie, man! Really cool.
Yeah, that's a top 10, maybe even top 5. Because again, like I think we were talking off air, I was looking through, I don't know, there's a website, something about Lovecraftian horror, and that movie came up, and I was like, I'd never even heard of this, and really kind of became obsessed with tracking down an uncut copy, which back in those days wasn't as easy as it is now. I think there's a Blu-ray, and I think it's been remastered and was put out in theaters early last year. But back then it was hard to find. I think I paid like $80 for a DVD of that. And what I saw was not Lovecraftian horror. It was something completely different, and just really, very unique. But I don't think we should say too much about it, because I think you and I are going to talk about that one.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I agree with you. Not Lovecraftian, but more like surrealist, like Lynchian kind of film.
Yeah, and this probably predates Lynch's weirdest stuff too. So like, I kind of wonder, like, I could see Lynch being a big fan of this and like it being an influence on him.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I could be talking on my ass.
Maybe, But before we get going, I just want to shout out to our co-conspirators in this podcast realm. Of course, I'm talking about Break the Apocalypse. I'm also talking about Into the Necrosphere, which, if you love black metal and extreme music, you can check that out. And recently, my co-host Ralph Schmidt over at Everything Went Black was a guest on that show to talk about his band Ultha and their brand new record. Horror Wolf 666, I had the pleasure of hanging out with Brandon Legion and his lovely wife Cynthia down in South Carolina while I was on tour, and that's like one of the coolest things is when you get to meet people in real life. And it was great hanging out with Brandon, and we had a great time. And I recently was a guest on his podcast. We talked about Lovecraftian horror, and that's forthcoming. It might be out in another week or two, so just keep your eyes and ears out for that. And
looking forward to that.
Yeah, man. And a lot of cool stuff. And of course, if you're not sick of hearing me talk about horror movies and you want to check out some other shit that I do, you can check out Everything Went Black, which is like weekly. There's a Patreon that's got bonus episodes, and yeah, if once again, if you need more of me talking, check that out, and there you go. All right, man. So
yeah, right on, man. So we're here to talk about Bloody Hell today.
You know something? I almost forgot what movie we were talking about. Actually, I have to be honest about that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I was like, I had to text you to like, which one are we doing today? We got a whole bunch of ideas floating around.
Yeah. So this is something.
Bloody Hell.
This is a movie that you recommended that I was completely unaware of, and so yeah, it's out there for rental. You have to rent this one. Released October 8th, 2020 in Australia, and October 9th, 2020 in the U.S. So it's a relatively new film. It's 93 minutes, and it's out of Australia, and it's in the action horror realm. Directed by Alister Grierson, and screenplay by Robert Benjamin. And I don't know who either one of these guys are. So are you familiar with these people?
I looked up Alister Grierson's name because I was like, I'm like, oh, the name doesn't sound familiar. He directed a movie, I want to say about 10, 12 years ago, maybe a bit longer, called Sanctum, that I believe James Cameron might have had a hand in it producing, because it's a horror movie that takes place mostly underwater, about like, underwater spelunking or something like that.
Okay.
I remember being better than the reviews. I think Ebert gave it like a half a star or something. I just remember it getting eviscerated by critics and watching it and thinking like, oh, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not anything I would, fucking be ecstatic about, but it was a tense watch. You know what I mean? Like there was moments of like, anytime underwater and like people having to hold their breath, that really gets me. You know what I mean?
Actually, this took place. This is like very, very down under vibe to it. Like it had like a very Australian or Kiwi sort of flavor to it, right? Like all the actors and stuff. And it had to do with like some crater or something like that, and they went in. They had some like cave diving expedition,
something like that. Yeah, I don't really remember it that well. I remember it had the guy from Session 9 in it, the British guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You know something? I blind rented this back when the final months of living in Brooklyn, in Gravesend. I remember renting this because it sounded cool, and I was hoping that it was going to have some sort of like Lovecraftian like bent to it, because I figured underwater, the title was Sanctum, like there'd be some angle like that, but it didn't. It was like a straight kind of adventure like film.
Yeah, like a survival, and you're underwater, it's pitch black, your light's dimming, your air is running out. It's that kind of a movie.
Yeah, but it was pretty good though. I thought it was actually pretty good. I didn't realize they did this.
Yeah, I didn't either, because I mean, this movie to that movie, they could not be more different.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So a bunch of people. That one dude, Ben O'Toole, who's like the main character. I think I feel like I've seen him before.
Yeah, I couldn't quite place where though. He looked like sort of familiar. I was like, oh, he's probably on like an episode of Law and Order or something. I don't know. Like he's, I could definitely see him playing like a superhero or something at some point, but I couldn't quite place him watching this.
Yeah,
but
it's like
everyone else in the cast is like an unknown.
Everyone in the cast looks like I've seen them somewhere else though. That's the thing. Like they're like these bizarro versions of other actors.
Could be.
Like one of the actresses to be look like a young like Linda Carter. Like there's this
Oh,
guy
interesting.
who looks like someone that I've seen like in another movie, maybe like, I don't know. It's weird. But I
Hmm.
haven't seen him. I didn't recognize any of the films that he was in when I looked him up on IMDb, you know.
Yeah, and the lead, the co-lead, Meg Fraser, who plays Alia, like doesn't even have like a name to like look up. I think this is the one of the first things she's been made like American, or at least for American audiences that she's been in. Maybe she's done some like TV here and there, but couldn't really find much about her.
Now the other interesting thing about this film is that it's an Australian production, but it takes place in the United States, allegedly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
Boise to be
starts off
specific.
in Boise, Idaho. It starts off there.
Yeah, which a few things about that. I did watch this in Boise with people from Boise, and aside from this establishing shot of the city, none of it was filmed in Boise. And there's even a scene that takes place at the Boise International Airport, which actually doesn't exist. There is no international airport in Boise. And even if there was, there would be no direct flight to Helsinki for sure.
Yeah, right.
um, so right away, I was like, that's an odd choice. Why Boise? It's like it doesn't play any part in the film at all. It could be anywhere, but they make it a point to say Boise. And I know we just started talking about it and jumping off to nitpicking, but that couldn't let it go. I was like, why? Why Boise?
Now, can I ask you a question? Is how you do this thing where you like to watch a film that is like from that part of the world? Is that why you watch this movie in Boise?
No, actually, I had never heard of it. Like, I was staying with my friend TJ. Shout out to TJ, Nobody's Hero Tattoo in Boise. And him and his roommate just like have stacks of Blu-rays, DVDs of like they're huge horror fans, and they had said like this is something that they just got and they'd seen it a few weeks prior, and I was like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. Never even heard of it. Like, let's check it out. And they were like, yeah, it takes place in Boise. I was like, perfect. Then they're like, it wasn't filmed here, but yeah, that's how I ended up watching. This movie was never on my radar. I never heard of it. I was like, bloody hell. And I was like, oh, it probably takes place in England or something. But it doesn't. And I really think, and this might be a stretch, a little conspiracy, I figured out second viewing why it might take place in Boise and Helsinki. Because at one point, he looks down in his ticket, his flight ticket, and the abbreviations are boy to hell.
Oh wow.
Like,
Okay.
Boise to Helsinki. The abbreviations on the ticket are boy to hell. And I was like, if they set this movie in Boise just for that one split second shot of the ticket, awesome.
Yeah, that is kind of brilliant. I actually didn't really pick up on that, but yeah. So it's basically it's about this guy Rex, who's played by Ben O'Toole, who I swear I've seen somewhere before. Maybe he was just on the street in like Union Square or something like that. But I know I've seen.
He
this guy
does. He
somewhere.
looks like a New York guy. He looks like someone you'd see walking around New York, in like nice leather shoes and
Yeah.
probably listening to the Bad Seeds on his headphones or something.
Oh, you mean New York from like the late '90s, not New York now?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. New York now, it's like the most generic motherfuckers you can imagine walking around. But yeah. So that's yeah. So Rex, we learn is a veteran with some really specialized fighting abilities, and also we infer from the way he interacts is that he might be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, because it seems like he has like an alter ego, like a good and a bad version of himself, one that pushes him to extremes. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say that the beginning of this movie also reminded me a little bit of a Quentin Tarantino film,
Glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's online at the bank. He's like this kind of slick guy, he's got a cool haircut, leather jacket, that kind of thing. And this very cute, very, very pretty young lady is the bank teller. And he's positioning himself, and there seems to be some kind of chemistry between the two. And then bang, these masked bank robbers bust in, brandishing weapons. And this is where things start to cut back and forth between the recollection of what happened in the bank, the fall, what he actually did, and the present time of the story.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Tarantino thing because I have it written down as like 90s influenced, and this movie is very non-linear.
Yeah.
Like it sort of like plays it. This is not like a slow burn sort of dreadful horror movie. This is a lot more fun and playful. It opens with a scene in Helsinki with like someone being chased down, and like it kind of plays its hand right away. And then you get to the bank scene, which I want to mention quickly. Him waiting in line, hoping he gets the teller that he likes. I feel like everyone in the world has done something like that. Where
Sure.
they're like, I want teller number 3, or I want to be in the teller that's around the corner and away from everyone else. I thought that was a nice, relatable moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie, like, you get a bank robbery and then boom, like you think that's that, but the movie keeps kind of cutting back and forth to like what's happening now, what's happening in the past, and while it shows its hand, it's going to, he's eventually going to run into this family. Like you're never really quite sure where this movie is going to go or how things are going to play out. Like even a little scene like how he's going to go to Helsinki when he gets out of prison. Like he shoots a spitball at a map, and wherever the spitball lands, he's gonna move to. That comes back later, and it's not even a moment you would really think that you'd go back to, but like they do go back to it. Like it has significance.
Yeah, and like we both agree that this is very Tarantino-esque, and I think it follows like a pretty, like even the way the story is revealed, like like when you watch Pulp Fiction. There's like 3 different timelines going on in that movie, and there's no exposition dump at any point. It's given to you over the course of the film, and that's pretty much how this thing proceeds too.
Yeah, exactly. There's no big extra. I thought maybe like when you're watching the opening credits and there's sort of like you see the bank robbery, and during the opening credits you find that he ended up going to jail because he kind of saves the day. And is seen as a hero to some, but he still ends up getting arrested and put in jail for 8 years for killing a bunch of bank robbers because they deemed it murder. And he does 8 years, and oddly enough, comes out looking the exact same as he did as when he went in. I don't know if they were just like, yeah, fuck it, let's not age him up or anything like that. He just did eight years, and he just looks the exact same.
This movie actually I thought originally it was just going to be like kind of a shoot 'em up, like once again, only checking this out based on your recommendation. Like I had no idea what the plot was or any of that kind of stuff, but I just thought it was going to be like some kind of shoot 'em up. Somehow he was going to end up in Scandinavia or whatever, I didn't know what really direction this thing was going to go in.
Yeah, I would again, same thing. Like when I watched it, they were just like, oh, it's kind of like, they were like, oh, it's fun, like let's just watch something fun. I was like, yeah, cool. So I really had no expectations or really no idea of where the fuck this movie was going. Like I had in my head, there was like a bunch of different things turning of where this could go. But it takes some unexpected turns. There's some, this movie does not take itself super seriously. I think it is more wants you to have fun with it than it is really trying to say anything, like we mentioned, this is a very 90s influence. There's also like this like kind of commentary on like celebrity and like when he gets out of jail, like paparazzi's following him around. I really feel like that is like something like today, like, people don't have the attention span for like months, let alone 8 years. Like this guy gets out of jail and like 8 years later, people are still, following him around and anything. They felt like a sort of just like a 90s idea.
I agree with that. Actually, that guy would be all but forgotten. You know what I mean? If he'd gone away for 8 years, nobody would he would be not even a footnote. Like he wouldn't be news at all.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be news for like 10 days maybe. And then like people would go on to talk about who slapped who at the Oscars or, you know what I mean? Like people just move on to the next thing. And 8 years later, someone would be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. A thing that happened in Boise. So yeah, that struck me as odd. There's a lot of things things early on watching this the first time around, he at one point he's shown he's got money, like he's got like a check for $31,000. That's how he funds his trip to Helsinki. That is never mentioned again, like where that money came from or anything. I don't know if maybe you caught something I didn't.
No,
but I was like, where the fuck did that come from? That's gotta have it's gotta come back later. That's one of the things it didn't, and I was like, it irked me.
yeah, that was a loose end that never got tied up. Actually, that the money, like where it came from. And the thing is, this film is a pretty well scripted film. Really, I think that the script for this movie is really cool, and something like, unless of course there's another edit of this film where they compensate for that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was getting a little long in the tooth or something like that. I actually feel this movie could have been a couple minutes shorter. I'm not going to spoil anything, but we'll get to the sort of end later. Like, I really feel like there's like the last 2 minutes of this movie could have been cut out completely. But yeah, maybe there is a version of this where like they explain it, or maybe it's just one of those things that was overlooked, like Boise not actually having an international airport, or like you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I like your reasoning though. Boy to hell.
Yeah, dude, I could be pulling that out of my ass, and I probably am. But I again, if that's the reason, fucking respect. Like, yeah, I gotta talk. You mentioned that like Ben has. It's not, or not Ben, the fucking Rex. Jesus, yeah. Where did they get Ben from?
That's his actual name. That's the actor's name, Ben.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My brain's all fried today. Sorry. He doesn't exactly have split personality or multiple personalities. He's got this physical manifestation of like his thoughts that only he sees. I wouldn't really call that a split personality, but it's a key plot device.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I would say it's a result of some evil shit that he did when he was in the military. Because he's obviously, it's pretty. They established that he's, ruthless, and has like a very fine understanding of violence, and how to like fucking handle himself. So,
right.
That's why immediately I was like, oh, it's some kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. And, like whenever he's under duress, he has this, like the evil side of his personality. Because that's the manifestation is the one that causes him to do all the crazy shit,
Yeah, in a way, but also like the actual Rex isn't like really all good either. He really is sort of like looking out for himself. So it's kind of interesting. You have like bad cop, worse cop. You know what I mean? Like Rex is not this like sweet, innocent guy, and then the other like dark part takes over. They sort of coexist and are sort of half, decent and half like, murderous. Like they're both kind of fucked up. And I gotta say, shout out to the actor giving a really good dual performance, making these characters who look identical, just giving them subtle little differences to separate them. I thought he did a really good job of that.
Yeah, because his alter personality, he's like slightly more maniacal, like his facial expressions and all that.
Yeah, and like I think maybe he parted his hair or combed his hair a little bit differently, a little bit more swagger to the performance, whereas if like normal Rex is a little bit more reserved, but not easy to do dual roles for anyone, and it can be done really bad. It can go really wrong, like not everyone can pull off a Jeremy Irons and Dead Ringers and give you two just completely different characters. This isn't quite on the same caliber, but it's good. He's very good in the movie.
And the character is actually pretty likable too. You know what I mean? Like you don't want anything bad to happen to this guy. You know what I mean? You kind of sympathize with him. He's cool.
And of course, terrible things do happen to him.
Yeah.
I like he gets to Helsinki, and even before he leaves, he's skeptical. Like you said, paparazzi's following him. He's not. Everyone's looking at him. And his alter Rex kind of, I think, spots these people. And he's like, I think they're after you. And turns out he was right. And old Rex ends up in a basement, tied up, not quite sure how he got there or what happened. He's missing a leg.
Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing this movie, maybe now is the time to duck out, because I think we're going to go into, even though we might not spoil the entire film, we're going to spoil enough of this movie where it might ruin it for you. So
yeah, I'll try to avoid it.
Yeah, so spoiler alert for you guys out there.
But this is where the movie, like, again, like, it's taking turns. You don't really, like, you're like, oh, the main character's now Sans leg. Like, this kind of ups the ante a little bit. I didn't quite see this coming. And, and maybe like a more serious movie, like, this would just be one guy, maybe wouldn't have a split personality. But here you have someone the actor can play off of, himself. And you get to hear his inner thoughts in a clever way by having two of them. Like, one guy's hanging up there and the other guy's sort of surveying the scene for him. And you really get inside his head, like the things, like, someone with training would probably think, okay, what's down here that I can use? What time is it? What, like, how are these knots tied? Like, what do these people want? I'm still alive for a reason. And I just thought all of that was pretty clever, pretty well thought out. Whereas if it could have just been a guy chained there with some, people come to see him now and again.
Well, yeah. This is kind of like a parallel. It harkens back to Fresh in some ways.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. We've been covering a lot of movies lately that deal with body parts being eaten.
Yeah, but this is where it departs, though, is that it doesn't. He's like still capable. You know what I mean? Like in a film like Fresh, something like that. This development could easily go into like some kind of torture, like torture porn kind of vibe or something, But in this case, he's just like, my leg's cut off, or part of my leg is gone. How am I going to get out of this situation, And
right,
and that's like where his kind of like reptilian brain like kicks in. He starts to try to figure out what's going on, and he looks around in the basement, and there's all sorts of like indications that he's not the first person to be like locked up down there,
Right. Yeah, and I like too that like I mentioned, the movie opens with a scene with like the family, although brief, and so you kind of know something bad is going to happen. I feel the audience is almost as in the dark as Rex is. Like, you're not sure of the intent. You're not sure why he's there. You're not sure what they want with him. You're not really sure until like kind of for a while.
Well, yeah.
So,
but maybe because just a few weeks ago I watched Fresh, and these are the kinds of films that we've been doing. I'm like, okay, obviously either the entire family is eating them. At first, that's what I thought it was. I thought they were all cannibals. Even like that very attractive lady, Meg Fraser, who plays Alia, that even she was eating human flesh. But we learned that wasn't the case, though.
Yeah, like, see, because there's a scene where, like, she's reading like this folk tale that is clearly about, someone like has something to do with why they're doing this. So I thought, like, there's something more to this. This is going to be some sort of cult thing. This is going to be something like bigger than like, they serve a bigger purpose. Like they worship this thing, and they're. I thought it was going to kind of go in that direction, and you also have like nods to folk horror with the masks that the Aryan-looking older brothers wear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like so. Like, the family consists of mother, father, two older brothers whose name escapes me, a daughter, and a young son, like, probably about what 8 maybe.
Yeah, 8, sure.
So pretty big family. You learn the family dynamics pretty quick. The mom seems horrible, like she's the evil one. The father is completely evil too, but he's a little bit more calm and measured in his rage and hatred. And the older sons, the Don Jr. and I think one of them. No, they're just sort of, yeah, like like they grew up sort of, I don't know, in their parents' shadow, and like, they're just fucking evil little fucks. And the daughter's different though, and has the most character out of anyone in the family, the biggest arc, the most more to play off of than just one emotion. Like mom is evil, and the dad is common measure, but he's evil. She has bigger, she has problems with what they're doing.
Yeah, she has compassion too, because she actually tries to help out Rex down there in the basement by caring for his, amputated leg there.
Yeah, and like you see early on her trying to escape, and and you see her kind of fantasizing about getting away, and someone coming to save her. I kept wondering, I was like, why don't they just kill her? They don't really seem to like her very much. They could put her in a cage. She was locked in a cage for parts of her life. Like, it was really cruel shit. Like, actually kind of dark for a movie that's so light and funny. Like, there's a lot of heavy shit going on in this movie.
Yeah, totally. And it has a little bit of a fairy tale vibe to it. You know what I mean? That's the other thing I kept thinking about too, is how it's like almost like this kind of big bad wolf like vibe, like some sort of grim fairy tale where there's
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I picked up on that too. That's why I thought like it would be. Again, I was like, oh, this is going to go somewhere like really like big, but it's really a contained story. It really is kind of like the evil is contained to like the family and like their big family secret, and then that's it. They don't serve like a greater purpose or anything like that, which was a little disappointing to me. I always kind of like they end up like being like worshipers of the ancient ones, or like like they worship this thing in a pit or something like that, but. This movie goes in a different direction.
Yeah, it's definitely more like there's no supernatural element. It's just I actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I like your option better. Like my idea was like they were all cannibals, but I like the idea that maybe there was like some kind of like shapeshifter who was like changed out with like one of the kids or something. You know what I mean? You know how like in fairy tales, there's all these like folk, like sort of ideas that are out there about like something that like the big bad wolf is like masquerading. It's like a monster that infiltrates the family somehow.
Right, and and that just it doesn't go that way. At one point, there is like she's our heroine is talking to the star of the movie while he's chained up, and she says something that made me think like, oh, this is going to go a different way, when she's like, you're not getting out of here, and even if you do, you can't stop them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so like, okay, there's something bigger than that like going on. Like there's something supernatural, like they have powers, and that didn't pan out. But
yeah.
I don't want to criticize it for what it's not. I'd rather just appreciate it for what it is. Like you said, like that's a great way to put it. It's like a fairy tale. Like she like Little Red Riding Hood. Or like she wants to escape and all that.
Yeah,
there's also a few. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's definitely a fun movie though. You know what I mean? Like all the things that we're talking about are like these extrapolations that we're making on what we would like the plot to have been.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that made me think that like hell or boy to hell thing was intentional is like there's like a little nod to the movie Misery. That that it again, there's a callback to it towards the end, where he's like, like how did he escape in Misery? Like, well, he had leverage. It's like, you need leverage. I mean, this has one of my favorite scenes. Anytime I see a little kid getting hurt in a movie, like it just makes me fucking laugh hysterically. I same thing with like I love animals, but anytime like a dog jumps off a cliff in a movie, like I just start laughing.
Yeah, I like when kids get hurt, but I can't take the animal stuff. Like that's why I never read Cujo nor watched the movie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, when it's taken seriously, I don't think it's funny. But like, I remember watching like something like A Fish Called Wanda, where a guy's trying to kill this girl and ends up killing her dogs.
Like, that's a brilliant movie, by the way.
It's so brilliant, man. So good. One of the best things to have, like, a Monty Python member in. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, like I said, like that little like throwaway line about misery, it comes back, like this movie is definitely like self-aware and just more about like, having fun with it. Like, even though Rex is in this terrible predicament and he's scared, he's still sort of cracking jokes and like, you're still sort of like laughing at what he's saying, or like, they'll show him trying to escape and they'll show like a funny angle. Like at one point, like his hands are tied up and you just see his hands and then you see his foot come into the frame. Like he's doing some crazy, like insane stretching.
Yeah, there was the one scene where he was like basically just doing pull-ups and
Yeah.
and like his alter ego is like, it's no time for that. And he's like, because he's trying to like, I guess, gnaw his way through the ropes.
Yeah, he's doing pull-ups, and I thought the same thing before, like his alter ego himself. Like, that fucking takes a lot of energy you're gonna need. You know what I mean? But like, I also wrote down like this, like again, like this is not like some super serious folk horror movie or anything like that. I wrote down like this is going in the like the direction of something like The Evil Dead, or what was that hide and seek movie that just came out not long ago?
I don't know.
God, it was about a family in a mansion and a girl, and they play games, and the girl, it was like hide and seek. It was something like that. God damn it, I wrote it down. Now I can't find what I did with it. Ready or Not, that's what it was called. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, not sure if you'd like it, but
yeah,
this is sort of.
I know the movie now. That the title, I know the title. I think I read the synopsis, and I was like, pass.
Yeah, I think this is sort of in that same kind of league, of like, it's a horror movie. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of violence, but none of it is meant to be taken super seriously. And while you don't know like the outcome, like this is sort of like a fun movie, and it's probably going to end okay for the hero. Maybe not, but it's definitely in the same league as that. And then towards the end, like I wrote down Evil Dead and like underlined it three times, because Rex sort of becomes like a Bruce Campbell-ish sort of character towards the end.
Yeah. I would say this movie is like a Quentin Tarantino film starring Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is like a throwback to the 90s, like all the way, even with like some of like the editing techniques. And like
it's very cutty. A lot of quick edits in this one.
A lot of quick edits, a lot of going back to things. I like that you go back to the bank robbery and see what really happened, and that like maybe he isn't a hero, maybe he is a fucking psycho. I liked having military training, so he knows what to do. He knows what's useful to him. There's a funny fucking like joke in the movie involving a flare gun. But again, like it doesn't ever really pan out the way I think it's gonna go. Like I said earlier about Rex, kind of like there's two of them in his head, but they're both sort of. At one point Rex has the option to like do something heroic or do something selfish, and like the main Rex chooses the selfish option, which I thought was interesting. It's not like the imaginary Rex trying to talk him into like, all right, let's get like save yourself, fuck this chick, but like he that's sort of the route he goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's complicated. That's what I liked about it too.
Yeah, it is, and like in a way like I didn't see the way the ending panned out coming at all. And that's one thing I really appreciated about this movie. Like a lot of times like this, you can like know beat for beat what's going to happen. This movie does not play out at all like I thought it was going to.
And there's the unresolved love affair that never was between Rex and Maddie.
Maddie, the bank teller,
the
right?
lady from the bank, yeah. And that kind of made me sad, actually, a little bit. I was watching that. I was like, I'm a little sad.
Yeah, it is. You get, and again, you get a better sense of like, what he really like lost in those 8 years. Like, although it's a fun movie, there are, like I said, some darker moments to it. And that is definitely one of them. Like her going to see him in jail. It's like a pretty sad moment in this movie. I agree with you.
Yeah, So yeah, it's a wide array of things that you can get from watching this film. Very enjoyable. Something you could definitely rewatch too, because I think as we're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, definitely gonna watch this again. It's something. If I could find this on Blu-ray for cheap, I'll probably pick it up.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to watch it, I watched it with some guy. I don't drink anymore, but my friends were all, drinking a few beers, watching this, laughing, having a good time. That's kind of the environment to watch something like this. And you don't take it, super seriously. It's a lot of fun to be had. It's a quick movie, 90 minutes ish. Like I said earlier, there's a little bit of an epilogue that I felt really kind of maybe unnecessarily sets it up for a sequel or something. I don't really like stuff like that. Or maybe it was a throwback to the 80s horror movie where there's always a little bit of a twist at the end. And I really just think that whole last couple minutes, I could have done without that.
I kind of like the falling action part at the end, but I could have, I could see cutting that out, but there was some funny stuff that happened in that, which I thought was cool. So I don't know. So you guys check it out and let us know how you feel about the ending for sure.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what people think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could have done without that. And there's also a little bit of a stinger too, where a minute into the credits, something else comes up, it cuts a quick 20, 30 second scene that I was I really could have done without that. But I don't, it's in there, so let us know what you think. But Mike, if you had to give this a grade, what are you thinking?
4.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
4.
Definitely rewatchable. Definitely rewatchable. Yeah.
Rewatchable, fun. My girlfriend watched it with me the second time around. She was laughing. She was having fun with it. And that's exactly the kind of movie that this is. And when people say, hey, what's wrong with a fun, bloody horror movie? I say nothing if it's done well. And this is something that's done well. It has the right tone. It knows what it is. And it's well executed in that regard. Didn't go where I wanted it to go. But, that's my own expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but well acted,
Yeah, no, exactly. I have that written down too. There's a bunch of people we don't really know, in it, and everyone feels very good. Even the mother and the father, they don't have a wide range that they need in the movie, but they're very good. The father's very, stern, everyone's very believable in their roles, and no one felt like they were amateurish with their acting, and especially to the lead actor having to pull double duty. I thought he did a great job, and this movie does maybe hint at you could see more from this character, and I don't know, I wouldn't be opposed to that. It would be kind of cool to check in on these people in a few years and see what's going on.
I agree because, like I said, he was such a likable character, and the actor was great, and I kind of wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, even though that could possibly be disastrous, really.
Yeah, it could, or it could be something totally different, like when you watch The Raid and then you watch The Raid 2, they could be more different, but I think that's a great way to do a sequel than trying to just copy the original over again. Just put these characters in a different situation, the Evil Dead movies. You have Evil Dead 2, and then you have Army of Darkness. You know what I mean?
Actually, that's a good point. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of league I think this movie is playing in. So maybe we'll see more from it. I don't know. I'd never heard of this movie before I saw it, and I don't know any. I mentioned it to you, and you never heard of it.
No,
so I don't really know if it made a lot of noise, and I'm not really sure why. This seems like something horror fans would just eat up.
Also, it seems like this should be something that should be on Shudder too. This is perfect for Shudder.
100%. I totally couldn't agree more. That is a great place to discover a movie like this. And sadly, it's not on there. You got to rent it on Amazon, which unless you're really scrolling through and looking for something, you might find it, but I feel like you really have to be looking for this to find it on Amazon.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely check it out, you guys. If you're in the need for a film that's fun, has a lot of action in it and is really well done. This is definitely something we recommend.
For sure. And Mike, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Sometimes I don't know if you're gonna like something or not that I mentioned. So glad you liked it.
Yeah, no, it was great, and I enjoyed
Cool.
it and a lot. Thanks for recommending this, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was fun. It's a fun one, and one I'll be showing to friends in the future. We have some friends that don't like to watch modern horror movies, and like this would be one I could point to and be like, this is a good one. This is how you do it.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, everybody.